Hello YouTube and welcome back to another video. Today we will be going over the true biggest problems of isekais nowadays. Because as any anime fan knows, isekai slop is real, very much real. We get like 50 million isekais every anime season. A lot of them are just all generic, nothing different, nothing new. It kind of treads the same story arcs and all that over and over again. But we still enjoy that slop nonetheless. I am one of those people that will eat up my isekai slop no matter what it is. But one reason I am making this video is because I feel like a lot of people tend to forget or not truly realize what the real problem is with isekais nowadays. Not really nowadays, it's been a problem from my own experience, from what I've watched and see airing. Um, the biggest problem with isekai isn't the fact that it's oversaturated, it's all generic and all of that, but it fails to be unique. And I will get to that later in the video. But the reason why, the biggest reason that made me even want to even write this, it is something I wanted to discuss for a while now, but I recently, which was a few months ago at this point, I've been slacking on this video, but I watched the Water Magician. I don't know. Oh my god. I the, I'm thinking of my wife Monica and whole thing. I love Monica. That series is so good. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. The Water Magician. I watched that recently, and I was heavily disappointed in that anime. Like, I can't begin to even Well, I am gonna begin because that's what I'm gonna be talking about right now. But like that anime is really what made me finally say I need to make this video ASAP because it had a lot of promise in episode 1. I was really hooked off that first episode, and the intro is so beautiful. The song is so nice. It fits with the intro so well. And from I was seeing in the first episode and the intro, like I was getting really excited. I got hooked on the very first episode, so I was really looking forward to seeing what's gonna come next, and I just am so disappointed by how it turned out. So, one of the biggest issues with the Water Magician, and I'm not gonna go too in depth into the actual like story and stuff, cause this is gonna be a too long of a video, especially if I keep rambling. But one of the biggest issues I have with the Water Magician is the world building. And I think that's a major aspect that a lot of isekais nowadays too just kind of throw to the wayside. Like, one reason I personally love Shield Hero Season 1 is because we get to see him traveling all over the land, helping people. We get to see their struggles, and while it's not the whole, like, world, other nations, that's not till later on in the series, it does end up getting neglected in the future of the series, and that is a big reason why I don't think the later seasons of Shield Hero are that good compared to the first season. With the Water Magician, it's kind of similar. In the first 3 episodes, it's really secluded because we just are focused on our main character. And then in the second episode, we get introduced to a new character who ends up getting shipwrecked on a distant land where our main character is living in. And so the first episode is just the intro into this world from the main character's view. It's a very secluded place, so we don't get to see much of it. And then the second episode, we get a new foreign entity, this new character who washes ashore. He brings a lot of new life into the series. He brings a lot of new information we never would have known before then. And then in the third episode, he leaves his remote home, the main character, to help bring this guy who crash landed back to his home. And so we see them travel thousands of miles. Like, I don't, not thousands, probably, but they travel very far in order to get this guy back home, crossing mountains, plains, fighting a bunch of different monsters and creatures, which exposes us to the world and shows us how deep and rich this world can be. But after that point on, once they return to the to the town where the guy, I can't even remember his name, unfortunately. He has red hair. Um, Once he ends up getting home, the main character ends up staying there and registering to become an adventurer. But once that happens, we never leave the town again except for like one episode, and it's just to go to a remote village of one of the other side characters that isn't even important. He barely gets any focus. And that's the one of my biggest gripes about the series is that like once we get to this town they never leave and nothing ever happens. And now it's not to say that nothing happening is bad, you know, that's one criticism about slice of life anime, but if the characters aren't there to carry it, then nothing happening is a problem. And that's happened with other anime, but I won't get into that right now. But tying into that is because we just stay secluded in this area, we don't really get a lot of information about these characters, about the world, even about the overall story and plot. Like, there's no focus in this series. It might as well kind of be Adventure of the Week due to the fact that not there's no overarching story and we're just following the day-to-day activities of random characters at times because we don't even follow the main character. He loses a lot of screen time and we focus on a lot of other people. Like, going one reason like we lack information is when I was first watching it, the first episode ends, and spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, I should have mentioned this at the start, but the main character has eternal life. He lives forever, and it's eternal youth, so he doesn't age. He looks very young and doesn't age. That is revealed to us in the very first episode, and it is never mentioned again in the series. And I was very confused to find this out because they mention he has this trait of eternal youth, but nothing is done with it. And we don't even know until the very end of the episode. Because apparently, when I looked this up, trying to see what other people thought of this series, apparently the first episode takes place over the course of 20 years and you do not feel that at all in the series. The kid, it just completely skips over that very important detail. And when you realize that, when you realize how much time has passed in the series for the main character, a lot of his decision making makes a lot more sense. But it's very bad when you have to find that out by outside sources. The series not conveying that is horrible. And that ties into a lot of the different the side characters as well. Despite the amount of time we spend with them, we don't really ever get to truly know them. Like my favorite character, despite her very, very little screen time, is Sarah, and I fell absolutely in love with her, dude. I love Sarah so much. I love her. I love her. I love her. I love her. But that's not gonna detract me or distract me from the negative aspects of this series. And you know, we should she's all over the opening, and the ending is dedicated to her. So when she has so little screen time despite that, it's very concerning because you are expecting when you see stuff like that to see a lot of her, to get to know this character, and you end up not. And the second to last episode, I believe, is dedicated to a character we just meet. We had just met one of the characters in the last few episodes, and he gets an entire episode dedicated to his past, which I personally appreciate because it was interesting. It gives him depth, which a lot of other characters can't say. Even our main character, he doesn't have any depth. So while I do appreciate getting that episode, it's also feels bad because it takes away from the main character. It doesn't, if we focus on a lot of the side characters without the main character, and it's like, why even have this main character if he's not even doing anything? And in one of the episodes, there was this big dungeon break, which is told from multiple people. Like, this is a very big event. This can, if things don't go our way, the city is gonna be destroyed, and we don't even have the people to defend it properly. This happens in the series, obviously. The dungeon break happens. Our main character is nowhere to be found in there. And these adventurers, the dungeon is surrounded in the Colosseum, like the Roman Colosseum. The dungeon is in the center of it, and they break out. And so the adventurers have it all surrounded, and they're defending this. This catastrophic event is just handled so easily. And the problem isn't that the main character isn't there. It's one issue, but like you hype not hype it, but you say this event is so dangerous, but yet it's just tackled so easily. You don't really feel the danger. And it's just very sad because it just adds to the fact that nothing really happens. And like I mentioned earlier, episodes focus on just these side characters so much, and we follow different characters a lot, so it doesn't have much focus. I know I'm not being really coherent when I talk about this, but I was very disappointed with the series. I didn't want to do like a full on breakdown of the series, a full on review, but this is kind of just the entryway to the main topic about isekais in general. So we're gonna and before we completely move on, it's called the Water Magician. He uses a lot of water magic, but like, it's about the water magician and we don't follow him. It's like, why? So moving on, the real problem with isekais, I already mentioned this, but isekais fail to be unique. What do I mean by this? Every isekai, as you probably know, has a very more light novels in general, but their titles can be a bit long. Like, I mean, this is a horrible example, but there's Mushoku Tensei, Jobless Reincarnation, but there's others one like reincarnated as a skeleton knight or as a reincarnated aristocrat. I'll use my appraisal skill to rise in the world. There's just so many isekais with very specific titles. And despite that very specificness in their titles, they don't utilize their premises at all. And I'm not gonna say it's a big issue that a lot of these isekais are power fantasies because the main characters always get OP, but it's that it just goes back to them being unique. So going back to Skeleton Knight, I enjoyed it. I'm very easy to please. But Skeleton Knight is the prime example of isekais failing to utilize the premise, failing to be unique. Because tell me, tell me, tell me, why is it that a human gets reincarnated as a skeleton because his character in this game, his avatar was a skeleton? Why is it that he is allowed to taste? Why is it that he's allowed to smell? Why is it that he's allowed to touch and feel? Why does he have access to these senses? He smokes in the series. He eats delicious food that he compliments. And it's just so like, what? How? It's not about being like scientifically accurate, like, oh, you're not gonna be able to taste a skeleton. It's that, imagine if he wasn't able to taste food. Imagine if he wasn't able to smell the air, to touch another person. His bones prevent him from truly feeling. How much would that add to his character? But that doesn't happen because he's able to eat, because he's able to smell, to touch. He doesn't encounter any problems. He might as well not be a skeleton at all. Like, why have this guy be a skeleton if it's not gonna influence him in any way? It's just asinine, and that's the biggest issue again. Because imagine if every isekai just focused on its premise like that. It would add so much. It wouldn't make them masterpieces. It wouldn't make them 9 out of 10 great anime, but like it would just add so much to the characters, the story, the uniqueness. Instead, it just adds to the pile of isekai slop that we already get. And so, one, I'm gonna make a comparison here. I personally don't like calling it that, but many people do. So, for the sake of argument, I'm gonna bring it up because I think it's still kind of relevant. Sword Art Online versus Log Horizon. Now, Log Horizon is what I consider to be the greatest isekai. Above ReZero, above Mushoku Tensei, but that might change honestly. I'm anime only, so I don't know. But I love Log Horizon. And I don't like that people call Sword Art Online an isekai because it's not really another world because it's still the video game. And now people have made the argument to me specifically, well, they're still like fully immersed into the world. Just because they come back to the real world doesn't make it any less of an isekai. Like look at Gate, for example. They can travel between worlds just fine. But my issue with calling SAO an isekai, at least until Alicization, but we're ignoring that right now, is the fact that the game mechanics don't change. And now, what do I mean by that? Well, let's take a look at Log Horizon. In Log Horizon, people get trapped in the game that they were playing. It doesn't just be like, oh, this isn't a game anymore. And if you die in the game, you die in real life. The game is their life now. And the NPCs and the world become alive. The NPCs that even the players themselves were like, oh, they're just a bunch of nobodies, become real people that have real stories. The game doesn't stay the same, it changes. The world of the game changes. The nations of the world in the game change. They meet with the players, they talk with the players, they grow to love the players, they become friends. All of that is what makes Log Horizon fundamentally different from SAO. Because ignoring Alicization with the AI stuff, which is what I would say, like, okay, that's probably as close to an isekai as it gets, is that the game Sword Art Online, the game Gun Gale Online, the game Alfheim Online, they don't become alive. In the anime, Asuna makes a comment about luring a boss into a village to kill the NPCs so they can take down the boss. Because the NPCs will respawn. They're just NPCs. The quests are exactly the same. The NPCs don't grow to become their own people, unlike in Log Horizon. And that's why it just adds to the fact that if these isekais just took a second longer to actually utilize the premises, that the isekai slop wouldn't be as much as a slop as what we've come to expect. And a lot of people tend to don't really realize that in when making conversations about isekai. And that's why I wanted to bring up SAO versus Long Horizon, because they think it's the same, but they're drastically different because of that one single difference. And it's how they utilize their premise. Isekai, or not isekai, but SAO isn't an isekai. But I just felt like I had to bring it up in this video because so many people like to call it one. And I can't deny the fact that it did help create the isekai boom. But that's gonna lead me to the next topic, is a lot of what we see now from isekais is starting brand new as a baby. In Mushoku Tensei, Ascendance of a Bookworm, the True Aristocrat anime I mentioned earlier, just to name a few. These are series where our main character dies and gets reincarnated as a child, and we get to see him grow and develop, and it's a nice change of pace. And this, even though they a lot of the series still focus on that power fantasy, it's the fact that despite them still being OP, following their journey as a kid and seeing the reactions of the adults around them and how they will influence the world is kind of funny. It is funny. Um, and it is something new and unique. Mushoku Tensei, what I love about that is we really do feel the world. We really do get to know the world. And our main character isn't an overpowered main character. He fails, he learns, and he struggles. I'm not gonna go too deep into Mushoku Tensei right now, especially because that's a whole other can of worms of how people perceive that. But it's just one reason I wanted to bring up this topic is due to it correlating with the previous one, because I want to focus primarily on the two aristocrat anime I mentioned. The first one being as a reincarnated aristocrat, I'll use my appraisal skill to rise in the new world, and the second one being the aristocrat's otherworldly adventure, serving gods who go too far. And the first one, and the latter, or the former, um, we follow the main character who gets reincarnated, and his appraisal skill allows him to see the stats of people around him. And using that power, he tries to find the best people to help him rule the kingdom. While in the other one, in the latter, the main character is just OP as fuck. And that's due to the story. The gods of this world deliberately did that because there was a greater evil that if they don't make him OP, that evil will 100% win. But the main character is just solo OP. He leaves everyone in the dust. And so while the other anime, the appraisal skill, is more about, I guess, community and togetherness, the otherworldly adventure aristocrat lacks that. Because of the character being so P, we fail to explore the world itself. And going back to appraisal skill, because we are trying to find these people of great talent to help his own kingdom, we get to learn about a variety of other characters in a variety of different places. And while we might not see a lot of those places, because he travels a lot more, it still adds depth to the story, unlike Otherworldly Adventure. I haven't seen Ascendance of a Bookworm, but I wanted to bring it up because I know it's extremely popular, but it's extremely well received. I've heard only ever praise upon praise about that series. And I'm sure it probably, with that praise, I feel like it follows mm, what the uniqueness. I'm sure it might utilize its premise a bit better compared to other series. Um, Going back to the aristocrats, the otherworldly adventure, he's an aristocrat, right? He has to learn to become a lord. He's a noble, but we don't see that. It's just he could have been a random slum boy who was OP and nothing would have changed because even the main character as a noble gets promoted through the ranks. Imagine if he was a boy born in the slums, but he was this OP. It would shake the foundation, not shake the foundation of the kingdom, but it would put a lot more, not, I guess, emphasis onto the politics of this world. He's already a noble, and while nobles are naturally jealous and try to up themselves, it doesn't really matter in his case of already being a noble. While in appraisal skill, him being a noble is the foundation to his story. He wants to find good people so he can take care of his lands. He wants to help people. His father, who was obviously the noble of his land before him, like the main ruler, was a role model for him in how to be a great leader, how to be a great military general, and he aspires to be like his father, to be able to be a good leader, to help the people of this world. Again, both aristocrats, it's both in the title, but they tackle their issues very differently. And this is an isekai video, but I feel like I have to talk about pure fantasies, not isekais, but pure fantasies. So not someone being reborn into a fantasy world, but just a fantasy world already existing. So I'm like Frieden. This is I'm gonna take liberty with these last two though. Spice and Wolf and Grimgar. Especially Grimgar, asterisk, because Grimgar is a isekai. But you can forget it is an isekai because in the very first episode, in the very first volume, when these people are transported to this new world in Grimgar, they lost their memories. They have no recollection of their previous lives. Now they still naturally have some memories, some quote unquote. Like they'll say words that don't exist in the new world, like my cell phone, but then they'll be like, wait, what's a cell phone? And so it completely, despite it actually being an isekai since they come from another world, it I want to put in more pure fantasy for the sake that their past lives truly don't matter in this case, unlike in 99% of other isekais. And Spice and Wolf, I wouldn't really call it fantasy either because it's more, just because something is medieval doesn't make it fantasy. But I feel like Spice and Wolf captures the essence of fantasy extremely well. And same thing with the Frieden, and that's why I have it here above other ones. Why we love fantasy and isekais is because of these other worlds. The other worlds are the main drawing point. That's why learning about the world and being immersed in the world is so important. if you're not immersed into the world, it could have just been a normal story taking place in modern time. Frieren, we follow her journey throughout the world. That's why we love it. The characters themselves are great, but I feel like a lot of people don't truly understand how much of an impact the travel and the world building is to these stories. That's why Spice and Wolf I have on here. The traveling merchant with the wolf. They'll go to different places. We learn about the world. We travel with them. We travel with Frieden. We travel with Fawn. We travel with Stark. We travel with Hollow. We travel with Lawrence. We follow these people along their journey, encountering the same struggles they do. Unlike in Isekais, where the overpowered main character, we can hardly relate. Now, it's fine to a certain extent, but a lot of the time, fiction is used as an escape from reality. That's why these other worlds, fantasy and isekais, are so popular. We imagine ourselves being able to get transported to a different world, to a fantasy world. And that goes back to the uniqueness of the stories. Skeleton Knight is the prime example. It doesn't utilize anything. It's just another isekai slop. Grimgar, while is technically an isekai, we get immersed with the cast. We follow them in this strange world. We learn as much as they learn. And they don't know a lot at the start. And so we don't know a lot about the world. But as they progress, we get more attached. We learn as they learn. We grow as they grow. And this, I just had bullet points. I didn't really have a full out script like some other videos I have done in the past, especially like Yosuga no Sora. But I want to try out a bullet point where I just talk about it. I hope I was able to get my point across. I could definitely have gone more in depth and in more detail, but I also don't want it to be this long. But I hope y'all were able to come to understand the problem with isekais isn't the fact that we get too many. The problem with isekais isn't that they're generic, it's that they fail to utilize the premises. Just because it has a unique premise does it automatically make it not generic, but it's how to utilize the premises that can make them stand out from amongst the rest. Think of the Buzz Lightyear meme. Imagine Skeleton Knight being the main one, like the focus, and then the zoom out of the other Buzz Lightyears being the rest of them. Imagine if instead of being a normal Buzz Lightyear, imagine he had a red suit. He stands out. He's the same. He's similar, but he's different. And that's the biggest problem with isekais. Thank you.